Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about history. More specifically, I'm going to talk about a man who was from Europe and who was the first European to come to America. I'm sure many of you already know whom I'm talking about, Christopher Columbus. But what else do you know about him? Do you know why Columbus came to America? Did he already know he would discover a new world? How did he discover the new world? Do you know in which year Columbus first arrived in America? Do you know why the new world was not named after Columbus, which was usually the case in history? And finally, do you know why the Native American people are called American Indians? Did they originally come from India? If you don't know the answers, watch this video and stick around until the end of the video. Oh, by the way, the content of this video is based on my book, which is entitled Essentials of World History. This is the third edition, which was published in 2015. Well, to talk about Columbus and why and how he came to America, we need first to talk about his background. Columbus was living in an age that is nowadays known as the Age of Explorations. Between 1400 and 1500, many Europeans ventured out to explore the unknown world. There were two major motives for such explorations. First and foremost, it was the desire to establish new trade routes to Asian markets. This desire became necessary because of the establishment of the Ottoman Empire in the east of the Mediterranean Sea after the collapse of the Byzantine Empire in 1453. As Muslims, the Ottomans would only allow people of their own religion to do business along the trade routes between the West and East. When Western business people, who were Christians of course, were traveling through their land, they must pay very heavy taxes. Therefore, West Europeans were eager to find an alternative route to the East. But why were the Western Europeans so eager to go to the East, you may ask? Well, the answer is simple. There was a huge demand for Asian commodities in Europe. For example, by the 14th century, the wealthy people had regarded Indian paper and Chinese ginger as necessities. The loss of access to the Eastern Mediterranean and its Asian trade was a heavy blow to the Western Europeans, especially to the merchants. They were eagerly looking for new ways to reach Asia. Politically, European monarchs realized that a new route would also diminish the dependence on Muslims and therefore weaken their rule. Religious mentality was another motive behind the Europeans' passion for overseas voyages. The hatred for Muslims and the strong fervor to convert new people into Christianity were very strong in Western Europe at that time, particularly so in Portugal and Spain, where the Muslims had largely been driven out in the Middle Ages. They considered as a holy task to spread Christianity. In addition, by this time, sailing technology was improved and new map-making skills were acquired. Ships were better designed and better built, which were capable of sailing the high seas. Europeans were now confident that they could sail across oceans and come back home safely. Of course, ocean explorations would not have been possible without financial assistance, because finding new routes across the unknown oceans was extremely costly and risky. It was a task no individual could undertake by themselves. It required state sponsorship. By the second half of the 15th century, the power of monarchies in Europe had increased both in terms of political authority and natural resources. They were ready to provide their help to those who would bring wealth and prestige to the monarchs. It was against this background that the age of explorations got underway. So now let's focus on Christopher Columbus, who of course was an extremely important figure in this age. Columbus was an Italian ship captain who was born in 1451 and died in 1506. Like many educated people in Europe of his time, Columbus believed that the world was round like a globe. Therefore, if people could travel to Asia by going in the direction of the east, they could also travel to Asia by going west. However, Columbus and many other people had severely underestimated the size of the globe. He also overestimated the size of Asia. What is more, he had no idea that there were two continents beyond the Atlantic Ocean. He only thought Asia was just across the Atlantic Ocean. All of these misconceptions made Columbus believe that it was easy to reach the east by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. In any case, by the 1480s, Columbus had prepared an ambitious plan. He now started looking for sponsorship. After being turned down by a number of monarchs, Columbus finally came to Spain to present his plan to the Spanish monarch. Queen Isabella was convinced by Columbus and agreed to finance his exploratory expedition. Columbus, of course, promised that he would bring back spices from India and tea and china from China. On September the 6th, 1492, Columbus set sail with 3 ships, Pinta, Nina, and Santa Maria. The journey westward was speedy, thanks to strong daily winds. But many of his people also became increasingly fearful that the winds would prevent them from getting back home. Though there was never a sign of mutiny, Columbus found it harder and harder to control his people as days went by. To ease the tension, he comforted his people by telling them that they would soon arrive in India. He also announced that a reward would be given to whoever saw land first. On the early morning of October the 12th, 1492, a lookout cried out, "Land! Land!" What he saw was one of the small islands in the Caribbean. But instead of rewarding the lookout, Columbus claimed that he had seen the land first. After the daybreak, he and a few others excitedly set foot on land after 36 days of sailing on the ocean. The joyful Columbus thought he had finally arrived in India. When he saw the local people who rushed to greet him, he called them Indians. Of course, these people were not Indians, but because of this mistake by Columbus, the native people in America have been known since as Indians, although nowadays we usually call them American Indians to avoid confusion with people from India, the country. Columbus made 3 more voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, and each time he believed that he had reached India, even though he never found spices or tea as he had expected. The later explorers soon realized that Columbus had never been to India and that he had actually discovered a new word. An Italian traveler called Amerigo Vespucci, who was also a good writer, came to the New World several times and wrote a series of letters back home in which he described in much detail everything he saw. These letters were published in newspapers and read by a large number of people across Western Europe. People got to know about the New World not through Columbus, but through Amerigo Vespucci. When a map maker was printing maps for the newly found word, he wanted to give it a name. He easily remembered Amerigo Vespucci, and therefore put America on his map for the new word. Thus, the new word became known as Americas, North and South America. From the Europeans' point of view, Columbus was a great explorer. In remembrance of Columbus, a Columbus Day in the United States of America, which is October the 12th, was created in 1892, exactly 400 years after Columbus' discovery. If you find it difficult to remember the year, let me give you a tip to make it a little bit easier. Just remember it in a rhyme like this. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Is that easier? Well, that is all that I wanted to talk about today. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.